I got the message in reading through your characters that, um, as opposed to, first of all, I can tell that Cottonmouth was not your first book because you have no perfect characters in it. Everybody's flawed. I love it. Um, it makes for far more fascinating characters. Frankly, I've in my entire life, I've only met two or three people who were perfect, and it was only I only knew they were perfect because they told me.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair point.
but uh, but I really loved a couple of the characters specifically. I'm just fascinated by where you came up with Z,
Mhm.
a Russian um, marksman. What was Z's background? I'm just curious why he was important to bring into this.
Well, for one thing, he's kind of the straight man, right? I mean, he's got that
Mhm.
deadpan sense of humor, and I like that as a reader. I like to have somebody with a sort of deadpan delivery, and if you look at in my mind, I'm oftentimes picturing Ivan Drago, from the Rocky movie back in the day. It was played by Dolph Lundgren, and
Mhm.
that's sort of the guy that's in my head when I see Zevon is that guy. But the again, looking outside of our little narrow confines, I try to find a character that is that is not Eurocentric. I mean, Russia, okay, borderline, maybe you could call it that, but it was more about his sort of almost mechanical approach and the fact that he's Devlin's straight man to some extent. And they just play off well together. And I was looking for somebody that could play off Devlin's sort of irreverent goofiness, if you will, and be the straight guy that would be the voice of reason, if you will. So his nationality didn't matter as much to me as it was
Okay.
the just his character and the fact that he got himself in trouble taking a shot at the big man over in Russia or trying to, and then having to flee. That was, I thought, kind of an amusing aspect to his character.
The reason I asked the question, I've spent a lot of time in Russia.
Mhm.
I flew 100,000 miles when you're on Aeroflot. That's like being almost sentenced to death every time you got on the airplane. Um, but I've known a lot of ex-military Russians, and I don't know that I've ever met anybody who's a straight man who came out of the Russian military. In fact, if anything, they're some of the biggest clowns I've ever met, which is why I asked the
Good point.
question. I mean, but your answer, I think, makes it clear it's not. It doesn't make any difference where he was from.
Yeah, the Russian angle, I think, is just again because I had that image in my mind of this character as opposed to anything else. But you know, when you look at who are some of the top special forces operators outside of U.S. and Britain and so on, I mean, I look at the Russian Spetsnaz as being among that group.
Yeah, I could see it. That's certainly their reputation.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Have when you are made the process or entered into the process of writing your other series, um, and that you say you've just continued with, yeah,
Hmm.
um, with a background of historical pulp fiction type books, um, do you see your work as kind of pulp fiction?
I do, and I'm not apologetic about it. I think
Oh, I love that.
it is certainly as I said before, escapism
Mm-hmm.
is important to me. That's how I enjoyed those books when I was growing up. I don't want to write literature with a capital L. I'm very happy just to crank out paperback novels and be that guy. Louis L'Amour was that guy, right? He was the Pulp Fiction of Westerns because he would just churn out that story after story after story, and he was just there were not necessarily anything that was going to stick with you beyond for that reading, but there was certainly the escapism and the fun that you had reading was the part of the journey, was the reason you pick up the book to read it.
Louis L'Amour is one of my favorites, and one of the things that I learned about Louis L'Amour that I did not know is he had an editor, an in-house editor, a woman who he hired, and Louis L'Amour never ever rewrote a book. He would make one pass at it. He would hand it to her and say, "I'm done. You make this marketable." Do you have anybody like that in your work, in your business, in your writing?
Wow, I wish I did. I would love to take one pass and hand it off. But no, I do certainly have people that I bounce ideas off of. And of course, I have a long-suffering wife who reads my stuff and sends me back the million and one things that I did wrong, so I can fix it. But you know, and all writers we support each other through community, right? So you know, I have a community of friends who are in the writing world, and I will sometimes have force them to beta read for me, and they can give me back the feedback that I need to improve the story. But no, I wish that I had somebody I could just hand it off to and say, fix this, and then be done with it, move on to the next.
Yeah, I was just thinking of mine. My wife comes as close as I have as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that has to suffer through my first draft every time,
Yep.
and smile as she suffers through my first draft every time. So as not to discourage it. So
Well, yeah, I mean, it's great to have that relationship. Again, as long as we're honest with each other in terms of what worked and what didn't. I mean, she will tell me straight up that this is stupid. Why did you do this? And um, as long as you have that, of course, you hand it off to your mom, and she's going, "Oh, I love this. It's great." That's not the feedback you need. You need somebody who's going to tell you the straight up facts about what they liked and didn't like. And maybe it's something you fix, maybe it's something you don't, but at least having that feedback is important.
when I read your the sat down and started reading Cottonmouth, one of the things that fascinated me, I don't know that I have ever read action scenes that were so encompassing. I mean, they just took away everything else from the book, and you were buried in them for pages. Is that is that something new for you? I haven't read your other work, so I can't
Well,
answer the question myself. But I have never read an action scene that just completely consumes you before. I've always thought, even in reading the classics, the Custlers and the Clancy's, and going back before that, um, the, I've always been able to read an action scene and think, okay, well, this is over. This is where this is going to end, and kind of guess ahead of time. I couldn't do that in your scenes.
well, Roger, I'm going to walk on air for the rest of the day. Thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it very much. I work hard on those scenes. I try to vary it up so that there's no one particular technique, right? Because, some people, there's this whole class on writing action, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's either use short, choppy sentences or use, long run-on sentences or do this or do that. And so if you don't necessarily need to do one thing. You vary up the technique. And no, I think I like blowing stuff up. So, I enjoy that part of the writing process. If I can blow things up and shoot guns, and that's good for that's enjoyable. I have a good time at it. And yeah, my other stuff, I think you'll find the especially the Jaeger series is all about the action.
Mm-hmm.
The Sam Cable Rita Goldman series is more police procedural, but there's definitely going to be action in it. And the other, sort of weirdy stuff that I write that's a little bit one-offs are a combination of some of them are more action oriented than others, but there's always going to be some of that element in there. I mean, conflict drives fiction, right?
Great.
So whether it's internal conflict and it's a moral question, or whether it's two guys in a fight in a bar. Um, so that's kind of the thing that when I first started writing, honestly, I relied too heavily on action because I was concerned that I wasn't able to carry off a story without it. Right. And I've talked to other writers who are in sort of the same Genre, won't mention names again, but I know one guy I talked to said, I had to have an action sequence every fourth page because I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to carry the story. And that was kind of where I started. As I've matured, I've gotten a little bit more confident in the ability to not necessarily have to blow something up every third page. So,
I've got two questions
mhm.
on that. First, do you personally like to shoot guns and blow things up?
Well, I don't get the chance to blow things up,
Mhm.
but I do like to shoot guns. I'm not the expert that maybe a Larry Correa is, or one of those one of the masters like Jack Carr, obviously who has a background in special forces.
Yeah.
But certainly I've been shooting since I was knee high to a grasshopper, as we said it in Texas. But
Mhm.
started out with my little Ruger 22, and then graduated up to my Kimber 45 as my everyday carry. So I do have a not an arsenal, just a few little pieces that I keep here for fun. But yeah, I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
I, I'll get to my second question. Yeah,
Hmm?
as I chat with you, to my right is a gun case with, I don't know, probably 13 or 14 long arms in it and a cabinet with at least half a dozen handguns. So that's why I asked the question.
There you go. All right,
Uh,
I'm coming for a visit, man. You just put out the firearms, and we'll just lay out and have some fun
I love that.
in
But
the summertime, though.
yeah, it's better in the summer, especially if you're doing prone work.
Yeah, no,
Um,
we're not going up there in the winter. I'm sorry.
okay. The second part of my question is from when I first started reading about how you write about blowing things up and the shooting and that part of it.
Hmm.
Um, I've I struggled early in the book to really identify with the especially the good guy characters
Hmm.
um, and what was fascinating about the book, by the time I got about a third of the way through it, I didn't care really as much about the character development. And because the characters were doing such really good things for really good people, it really didn't matter what their background was. And then over the course of the book, you gave me the rest of their background. Um, is that a technique you historically have used, or did you even think through that when you did it?
Well, I've always been of the mindset that you reveal character through action or through, activities, not necessarily action like, the blowing thing up action or whatnot, but certainly through interaction of characters, you reveal character backstory and character traits and that type of thing. You don't, I see a lot of mistakes made by typically younger writers who come out and say, give you the entire biography of a character in the first 5 pages, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is boring. This is not, okay, fine, but it's not fiction, right? It's more of a book report at that time.
Mhm.
So yes, I do think through how to reveal that character throughout the series or throughout the book so that they can show themselves, and sometimes, Roger, to be honest, I don't know what they're like until I start writing them. They haven't shown themselves to me yet, and I have to sort of get in. I set the bare bones, and then I'm writing, and all of a sudden they're saying something like, "Oh, okay, well that's what that person does." It's really strange how that can organically sort of morph from what you thought might be the character into something else entirely.